welcome to Chaotic Riffs Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.chaoticriffs.com. My name is Jason J. Rock Houston. I'm honored to be speaking once again to best-selling author Elise Krentzel. Elise wrote the book Under My Skin, and we talked to Elise about a month ago about her book. Today we're going to be talking about music collecting. You sent out an email last week about this being music collection month, and so I thought that'd be fun to talk about because I'm all into music collecting. How about you, Elise?
Sure, I am. Only now it's not vinyl.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. I'm an old school guy. Even today, I had somebody recently tell me, man, nobody's buying CDs and vinyl. Why do you have all these, CDs? I have boxes of CDs just in my bedroom at home, and and part of that is, goes back to when I was a kid. I love looking at the album, cover, the artwork, who played on the album, who wrote the lyrics. It's all about that for me. I love the whole package, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, me too, but I don't know if that person is actually accurate because vinyl is making a comeback.
Yeah.
I have a 20-year-old son. He has a turntable, albeit it's electric kind of turntable.
Yeah.
It's not like back in the old days, but he has the beginnings of a vinyl collection, and I agree with you. I would have kept my collection. I had over 4,000 LPs.
Yeah, I read that in your book. Yeah, I said, wow.
Yeah, but I schlepped them all over the world. How silly was it of me? Born and raised in New York. Okay, collecting all of that, moving that to my first apartment, second apartment, and then taking them all to Japan. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Collecting more and more and more in Japan. Anyway, I finally got rid of them, and that was like the bane of my existence. I was so upset.
Yeah. It's funny you talk about your son having a turntable. Just last Christmas, I bought my mother a turntable, and the funny thing, the new turntable, it has like Bluetooth and all that, and so it's modern technology. And my mother still has a huge collection of Beach Boys and Beatles and Perry Como and all her favorite music. But like you said, it's kind of interesting. Vinyl's made a comeback in probably the last 10 years. Like in the early 90s, vinyl became a thing of the past, as did cassettes, and CDs also seem to kind of be on their way out, but they haven't totally become extinct just yet.
Well, that's good, because if we follow the progression from LP, well, first of all, it was 78 RPM to 45 to 33 RPM, and from there it went to CD. From CD, it went to cassette, then it went to CD. From CD, it went to the iPod. Yeah. And from iPod, it went to streaming.
See, that's what I never understood. As far as I know, you got to move with technology, but, somebody was also telling me, hey, I dig the fact that I got all my music on my device, or, I got all my music, on my phone. I don't even have to have anything physical. But I love the whole package. I love to look at the artwork and everything that went with that, Like cassettes, I love cassettes back in the day too, but of course then only thing with cassettes is after you would play it so much, the tape would start to get eaten by the tape machine,
Well, that's very true, but here's the thing. The iPod, and this is what really pissed me off. The iPod, I had 6,000 songs on it.
Yeah.
And you couldn't convert it.
Yeah.
You'd have to pay so much money to convert it. It would take up so much space on my laptop. Then I would have to buy more space on the laptop. But even so, it's not even worth it. So now I'm using a streaming service, and I have to say, I am as happy now as I was having CDs, which was already a stretch to convert from LPs to CDs, because then everything was smaller, but at least you could still read and feel and touch, a product. So what I like about streaming now is because I can see the lyrics, I can see an album cover.
Yeah.
And it's really good. And I love Shazam for that reason, that I can still find out new music wherever I go on the go, and that's really cool.
Yeah, and again, I think for me, I do miss the physical product as far as, like even one of my favorite albums, like Kiss Destroyer. I mean, you look at that album cover, and it takes you back to that time of your life. You associate that photo with that album, with the band
I know.
at that time. And another thing that I kind of miss is, back in those days when we were growing up, Elise, I mean, people would really support the bands they love. Like, for example, I'm a Kiss and Aerosmith fan. I love so many great bands, but, like, I'd go and buy every Aerosmith album, every Kiss album.
Right,
I was,
right.
And then these days, even those classic bands like that are not releasing new music because who's buying CDs? And the other thing with that is a lot of the fans are not as diehard as they used to be. They'll be, oh, I'll just buy the latest single for 99 cents. I'm not going to buy the whole album.
Well, that's right. I mean, the whole nature of the business changed, and it's even hard for bands to make a living going on tour. They can't even go on tour and make a living.
Yeah.
So it's all about promotion of that momentary pleasure, the one song kind of thing, and that's really where it's at.
Yeah, and the way also the music industry has changed, I mean, from when we were growing up, is that, back in the day, like, a band would not even be on tour unless they had a new album to promote, that's not the case any day, or, a lot of times you didn't even know what songs they were going to play until they came to your town, because, again, the internet didn't exist and all that, so it has a lot to do with the way the world has changed.
That's true. And on the other hand, I've gone to see a couple of hip-hop shows.
Yeah.
Like I've seen Nas, I've seen Logic. I mean, they were promoting their albums, and they had fans, so everybody knew who they were, and they were on tour. So, yes and no. I think the no part has to do with new bands, new talent. It's extraordinarily hard to break through. You have to be on every single streaming platform. It's about building up your social media, building up, and it takes longer than before.
Oh, sure. And also with the social media, I mean, like, everything is now released every Friday. New music comes out on Friday, and usually what happens is whatever the hot title is this week, by following Friday, it's been forgotten about because there's something else coming out,
Well, and I think that's what happens, like, in the democratization of everything, like everybody's a musician, everybody's a photographer, everybody's a journalist, everybody has an opinion, which, we all do, but that doesn't make everybody a great musician or a great writer or a great photographer. Sorry, folks.
Yeah. And then, and then the other thing with that is, like, I've talked to some people talking about vinyl making a comeback. The nice thing about vinyl making a comeback, too, is it's a one way that a lot of the bands and musicians, they can kind of cut even, because somebody's more willing to pay $35 maybe for a vinyl if you get a real nice package, and then that way the bands are able to kind of make a little bit of money that way these days.
Well, that's very true. In fact, I just came back from the Austin convention. It's the largest vinyl show in America.
Wow.
Yeah. 3 days. I was selling my book there. I mean, people came for vinyl. but yeah, some people bought my book.
Yeah, and then talk about that, attending an event like that, and people kind of just stumble across your book and come up and talk to you. That's got to be pretty cool, and meeting people that way.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally cool. And don't forget, everybody there is a collector. Everybody attending that show is the collector. You could talk to people about all your bands, all the music that you listened to growing up. I was in conversations with people from all over the world, from Mexico, from California, from Maine, talking about King Crimson or Emerson, Lake and Palmer, or Genesis, like back in the day when Peter Gabriel was there.
Wow.
I mean, it was just terrific.
And see, that's why I enjoy talking to somebody like you, Elise, not just because I'm a Kiss fan and read your book, because I wanted to read about, you going on that tour. And like we talked last time, that's just one small chapter of a book. When you read the entire book, you really get into kind of your life story. And that's what it's all about. And I'm the type, I think, very much like you, that I could talk to hours with anybody about, my love of music, for example, or my love of, old classic movies. And it's a common interest we have. That's why I enjoy like interviewing people about these different musicians I interview about the bands they play in. It's kind of fun. We got that common interest.
Yes, it is fun, and you're right. I mean, for hours upon hours, and I made nice new friends that way. It was just terrific. You don't even have to explain anything. You're all talking the same language, and it's music. So, of course, granted, some people were into prog rock, some were into classic rock, heavy metal, all the different genres, but still, it was an era. And even if I spoke with people that were in their 20s or early 30s, they all were into 70s music, because it really was one of the best eras of music.
Oh, yeah, I mean, for no other reason. I mean, a lot of the bands from that time, they were, what made those albums so great, not just the musicianship in the band, but the songwriting. I mean, let's talk about Rod Stewart, Aerosmith. I mean, the Eagles.
Jethro Tull.
Yeah.
Jethro Tull.
Yeah, and Jethro Tull these days, I mean, people bring them up, they beat Metallica out, in the 80s for a Grammy, but, I mean, I was just reading one of their albums, celebrating 50 years, so that's a band that's been around for years,
Yeah, or The Who.
Yeah.
These were concept albums.
I mean, don't even get me started on The Who. I just seen a magazine, The Who is celebrating 60 years in the music industry.
60 years.
Wow.
I can't even believe it. I know.
And The Who, I mean, that's one of those bands that I think anybody that hears their music is like an instant fan. I mean, and when you think that Pete Townsend is pretty much the principal songwriter of all those great songs, and Roger Daltrey was the voice, and he Pete Townsend wrote for his voice. It's just amazing.
It is amazing. It really is.
And that's why, like a guy like me that listens typically to hard rock or metal, I do have an appreciation for stuff like the Eagles, because again, we're talking about music that's been around 40, almost 50 years. Those songs are still being played on the radio, and I remember even as a kid, hearing Hotel California or Take It to the Limit, on the radio.
Yeah, I remember that too. I wasn't exactly any kind of like American music fan, except for like, Kiss, Aerosmith, definitely, the New York Dolls, a couple of punk rockers, Blondie, all the crowd from CBGBs, but I was really into the alternative, Brit pop for sure, and yeah, that music, it just makes me happy. I have playlists upon playlists, and sometimes when I'm home at night and I don't want to watch TV or movies or so, which I love, but it just, play the music, start dancing around, it's so great.
Yeah, and somebody I was having a conversation with recently, they were telling me, you can't even get a CD player in your car anymore, but the funny thing is I love listening to CDs so much in my car. Like when I'm on the way to work, I found a place where they put a CD player in my car, and I went to that extra trouble. I mean, because the previous CD player I had in my car, I used it so much that I burnt it out, if you know what I mean, just from constant use. And that's how much I love this stuff. And you talk about some European bands. I don't know, were you ever a fan of like Deep Purple, or were they a little too heavy for you?
No, I did love Deep Purple, except something turned me off to them. You want to hear the story?
Sure.
Okay, so it was in the Bronx at Van Cortlandt Park. I wasn't living in the Bronx anymore. I was on Long Island. So, I don't know, me and a couple of friends, we hitchhiked. Back in the day, you could do that.
Yeah. It was a different world.
So we hitchhiked out to the concert, Deep Purple. And on the way back, it was a great concert.
Yeah.
On the way back, we get a ride from these, I don't know where they came from. I think from down south somewhere, but from far away. And these people had knives. It was very, very, very scary.
Wow.
So I just invited them to my house. It wasn't my house. I was like 16 years old. So my mother's house. And I said, here, take a shower. Here's some food. And then we sent them on their way.
Yeah.
It's like, that was just so scary.
I bet. Wow, you're lucky to even still be alive, I bet. And
I know.
But what I loved about
remember the Stones at Altamont in 1969. You remember that? What happened there with the Hells Angels?
I heard about it over years, but yeah, why do you tell people that story who haven't heard it?
Well, I mean, I wasn't there, but I was like 12 years old or something at the time, but that was the most violent. People died at the concert.
Yeah.
It was Hells Angels at Altamont, California, and the Rolling Stones were playing, and people, they got into fights, and Hells Angels killed a few people. It was horrible.
Yeah, I don't know why going to a concert has to get like that. I mean, same thing, in the 90s, Guns N' Roses had a show in St. Louis, and riot broke out because Axl Rose said some stuff on stage and was late, coming on stage and all that. But it's a shame when, you want to go to a concert experience and enjoy it, and something like that ends up happening.
Yeah, it's a shame when it happens anywhere.
Oh yeah, anywhere. I mean, and the thing too about collecting music and albums in particular and listening to them back in the day was a real experience. I mean, I remember some of these albums we're talking about. I would plan, I'm going to go get the next Aerosmith or Kiss album or next Black Sabbath album, whatever it was at the time. And I'd be like, oh, okay, I know when it was coming out, come out and get it. I'd go buy it. I'd sit home and listen to the album until, I wore it out. And
Me too.
And you get to know, like you talking about going to see Kiss in Japan when you got that opportunity. And talk about, remembering hearing Peter Criss sing Beth on stage and what that did for you. I mean, and you go home probably and you listen to the album and, hey, that's my song. I seen him, perform at the concert. And back when they used to be experiences, and now you have like radio shows that are based around classic albums, talking about, looking back on, 1976 when this album came out. And people, I mean, I know I do. I still enjoy looking back in that time of my life and all the music that I loved at that time,
Same here, and what you were talking about with the album, like, it was so integral to the actual listening of the music. It was listening to the music with headphones.
Yeah.
They weren't earbuds, or just tripping out on the sound and holding the album in your hand, reading the liner notes, looking at the artwork. And I can remember, as clear as I can remember the songs, I can remember the artwork on these LPs.
Oh, yeah.
Like King Crimson, the open, in the Court of the Crimson King, the open mouth. I mean, I can just, like, in a Iron Butterfly and a Gata Davida.
Oh, yeah.
I could see the album cover.
Yeah, and I mean, even the band's logos and stuff, you'd identify with, that's Van Halen, that's Kiss, that's the Eagles, that's Aerosmith,
Yeah.
And that was a big part of it for me back in the day. I remember just holding the album covers when I'd buy them, and like seeing Kiss's Destroyer, still one of my favorite albums of all time. And I mean, I looked at that, I like, man, it looks like these guys are superheroes. They're standing on top of the world. And I remember not even knowing anything about Iron Maiden, and being in a record store one day and seeing their album Number of a Beast, and I didn't know what it was at the time, but I thought, I don't know what this is. It just looks so cool. I have to get this.
Well, I was into art.
Yeah.
And actually making art as well as writing.
Yeah.
And what I did in my room was I framed the album covers, and I put on one wall to wall album covers as my artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's fun. And as some of our aging rock stars are getting older, like one example to me that kind of stands out is John Bon Jovi. I mean, he's great at what he does. I've always been a fan of, from way back when, but I dig the fact he's kind of got this kind of Elvis thing going. He's got gray hair now, but he still looks cool. People still love what he does. And it doesn't seem to affect him,
That's cool.
Yeah. Were you ever much of a Bon Jovi fan?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I think it was also later. That's why.
Yeah. So, as you got older, did you still continue to listen like those bands and those albums you listened to from your heyday, or did you ever get into any newer music?
Oh, I totally got into newer music. I mean, the 80s came along, and I always progressed. Like, the 80s was, for me, it was Pet Shop Boys, it was Duran Duran, Tina Turner, Boys, the Men at Work, the Australian band, and so many others. And then towards the end of the 90s, I really started getting into hip-hop. I mean, Outkast was like I loved Outkast.
Oh, wow.
And then what? In the 2000s, I can't really remember. I think it was just a blur of... I was totally into world music at that point because I was living in Europe. And Angelique Kidjo, she's African, performed in Belgium. So a whole bunch. I was really into South African music.
Wow.
So, expanding my horizon. Yeah, that was it.
Wow.
Like 1990, Johnny Clegg and a couple other South African bands.
So you got like real eclectic taste, and I dig that you're so open-minded, that you're like, my thing is I'm willing to listen to something before I say I don't like it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the same here.
Yeah, and you're not gonna like everything, but and so like what did you think? Did you ever hear when Run DMC and Aerosmith did that version of Walk This Way?
That is my absolute favorite.
Wow.
I love that. It's just Walk This Way was my favorite Aerosmith song forever. Yeah. And then when Run DMC did, I loved it.
I'm with you there. I mean, it was always one of my favorite tracks from back in the day, but to me, I mean, it's kind of the earliest version of a rap song. I mean, it had rap.
It's dub, it's like dubstep.
Yeah. And then when they redid it, I mean, I thought, man, what a cool way to kind of modernize it, and and it seemed to work. And what I dug about that is it brings like the rock world and the rap world kind of together, and everybody was digging it at the time.
Well, here's the funny thing. If you look at the punk world and the rap world, well, they were together because rap was definitely an anti-authoritarian. Punk was anti-man, and so there was a very short period in the 70s when the two came together. Unfortunately, people were not that open-minded.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the last interview we did, we talked about the fact that, back in like the 70s and the 80s, like punk and metal, or rock bands kind of, they were anti each other. But now it seems like these days that that you can be a punk fan, you can be a metal fan or a rock fan and love it all.
Yeah, you can. I just wonder though, does it have the same political clout? I mean, being punk now, what's your message? Yeah. What are you fighting for or against? And I don't know that. I don't know if they are. Yeah. Are they?
They don't seem. I think even a lot of the punk bands that I've encountered, like the newer ones, I don't think they're as hardcore as the ones that were around, like the Sex Pistols when we were growing up, or even the Ramones. I think a lot of these bands, they're trying to be punk. They're trying to, like anybody else, they want to have a hit song on the radio. It's not as much about maybe the attitude as it used to be.
Which is too bad. Then I wouldn't even call them punk.
Yeah, and so, what did you think of MTV? Like when MTV came on the scene, and then all these bands started to, promote the records. Okay, let's make a music video.
Great question. I love that question. So, as I might have mentioned in the first interview, I definitely was a snob. So when I was younger, and so when our MTV first came out, I thought it was like, oh my God, look at how dumb. These are not reporters. All they're doing are reading cue cards and acting real cutesy, especially the girls. It was just so, I didn't like it. And listen to this, I had a job offer when I came back from Japan to be a VJ on MTV. Oh, wow. And I said no. Wow. I said no because I thought, intellectually, this is beneath me.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That is interesting. Yeah. Is that something you regret, or you just say, well, wasn't meant to be? Yeah.
No, I don't regret it. I don't regret it. And then I think that, so after getting over my snobbishness, I thought it was a great way to introduce the bands. Yeah. But really it was in terms of the VJ, it was watered down. At least DJs, they could speak, they could talk, they could interact, they could banter. These DJs, I don't know, they were just puppets. Like, and here comes the next song, and there.
Yeah.
On the other hand, one thing that changed with all the videos, because if you start looking on YouTube, look at all the videos that were done in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're worse. So MTV brought it to, it sexualized the content, which I was not, I did not approve of that. And I'm no prude.
I hear you.
I remember that my half-sister, who was then like 9 years old, looking at this, I didn't want her to watch it.
Yeah,
Every single woman and guy, it was like everything was about sex.
At the same time, that became the formula for a lot of those rock bands in the 80s.
Horrible.
You know, and say what you will, and it's funny what you say about some of the VJs. I remember they had this guy, Adam Curry. He was like the rocker dude with the long hair. It was so stereotype of what people thought of that back in the day. And I've seen reruns and old clips like on YouTube, like you said, and it's kind of laughable now. I mean, this guy was supposed to be the idea of a long-haired rocker or heavy metal from back in the day, and you look at it now and you kind of laugh. And then like when they had Headbangers Ball, they got rid of him. They got this guy Ricky Rackman. He looked more like a metal guy. But a lot of those guys that were on the MTV, it was all about the look. Got to look a certain way. Yeah.
Yes.
And then the other thing, like you said, it was a way for these bands and these artists to further promote the record. Okay, well, now let's get people not just to buy the record and go see the band when they come on tour, but let's get them to check out the latest music video. And you kind of made an interesting point, because I remember too in the 70s, before there was ever MTV, a lot of those bands from the 70s, like for example Queen and Kiss, they were already doing like music videos in a way. Because like back in the 70s when these bands would go appear on TV shows, you'd have to have a little clip or something that they could play between the interview, And
that's right.
Queen was one of the first bands to do that, I remember. Before there was ever an MTV. And what's interesting about MTV, as great as it may have been as a promotion tool, the people behind the scenes, they killed MTV. I mean, I'll never forget, one day they just stopped playing music videos. They still got a TV network called MTV, but I just flipped by it, and it's got like all reality shows now.
What?
Yeah.
Well, I stopped watching it, I guess, at the end of the 80s, or
like
I just stopped watching.
When grunge became the thing, they just, okay, we're gonna stop playing all the pop stuff, all the rock stuff. It's just gonna play grunge, and it became Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and everything.
Oh, right. And then they started doing the interviews. Right, exactly. I stopped watching it.
And then the Real World was a hit, so we're just gonna play nothing but the Real World. And that's the thing. Like I was a fan of that Real World show, but it became oversaturated. Okay, they overdid it. I mean, that's what I liked about MTV back in the day. You had your own MTV Raps. You had Headbangers Ball. You could watch videos during the day. It was a little something for everybody. And then one day, I was reading an article about the guy who used to be president. He just decided he was going to kill it. I interviewed the drummer from Trickster, and he told me the funny thing he said, our song was #1 on MTV, and by the next week, we couldn't get any of our videos played.
Yeah.
And it's funny the way that music industry works, but I think YouTube is a good thing, though, because it's more of a place for people that they can just post their stuff. People can check it out, and I dig that, because back in the day, the other thing I heard about MTV is bands have to work overtime just to get their videos played on MTV.
Well, now they have to work overtime just to get people to hear them on streaming. They always work overtime.
Yeah. And see, that's the other thing I noticed online is all these bands, you visit their official site or whatever, and a lot of them now have ads. Oh, we just reached 3 million streams or whatever on this particular song. That's kind of become a new model.
Yeah, it has. Everything changes, right? Everything changes.
Everything changes, but
and then some things remain the same.
But the thing, I think the thing that never really changes is our love for those bands and those albums that originally got us hooked on the music, you know?
Exactly.
And so do you still, I know, you know, with all this current COVID stuff we've been going through the last 2 years, things have also changed, but have you been to any concerts lately, or do you still go and check bands out?
No, I haven't. And even though I've been vaccinated multiple times, I'm not going to go.
Oh, okay. Well, Elise, I enjoyed talking to you. It's been a real fun conversation. I'm sure we'll do it again. But I guess the last question I'll ask you before we wrap it up for today is, I also know in your book, towards the end of the book, you talked about after the KISS tour, you stayed in Japan for a while, and you were working on at some local radio station there. So what was that like for you, having that experience, not just as a rock journalist and a music lover, but getting that opportunity to kind of play music on the local radio?
So back in the day, FM Tokyo was the first FM station in Japan, and then they had their affiliates in Osaka, Nagoya, Fukuoka. It was only one FM station for the whole country. Okay, this is 1979, and I was a DJ, and I introduced punk rock music on the radio to the Japanese audience.
Wow! Now, was there much of a
fantastic?
Was there much of a punk scene in Japan, or at least a love for the music?
Oh, totally. I mean, it started punk rock as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it blossomed. It was terrific.
And did you have like total control of what you played, or were you? Did you have? Oh, that's cool. Okay.
I could play anything I wanted.
Oh, see, that makes it that much more fun as opposed to having a program director dictate what gets played. Well, again, Elise, I enjoyed chatting with you again today, and the interview we just did will be posted probably in the next week or two. I'll let you know as soon as it goes up.
Great.
And I was going to say, is there anything else you're currently working on you want to let us know about?
No, I'm working on trying to get my book sold to independent bookstores around the country. You can still get it on Amazon. You know, being invited to different places around the country to do book signings and readings. That's kind of what I'm working on now. And book 2.
Okay.
I'm writing book 2. I'm on chapter 5.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, we look forward to that one. You take care, my friend, and we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks, Jason.
Anytime.
Chaotic Riffs Magazine.